There is a moment in the existence of every human being when reality as we know it fades away. An instant of absolute silence, of unknown stillness, where the noise of the world falls silent and only the final pulse of consciousness remains. It is the great mystery, the only certainty we all share, and paradoxically the great conversation we most avoid. We have been taught to see death as a failure, as a dark and fearsome end, an abyss from which there is no return. But what if everything we believe we know about it is incomplete? What if death were not a full stop, but a portal, a transition not into nothingness, but into a different state of being, one that has always been intimately connected to the life we are living now? In the oldest and wisest traditions of humanity, death was not an enemy to be defeated, but the deepest and most profound of teachers. It was seen as the ultimate mirror, reflecting back the truth of a life lived. And among all those ancestral voices, one stands out for its poetic clarity and astonishing depth, that of the Bardo Thödol, better known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This ancient text, far from being a manual of superstitions or a simple recipe book for the afterlife, is actually a meticulous map of the soul's journey. It is a detailed cartography of consciousness itself in its most crucial and vulnerable transit, a guidebook for the ultimate adventure of the spirit. But its true revelation, the heart of its message, is even more transcendental and immediately relevant. It teaches us that learning to die is, in its essence, learning to truly live with awareness, courage, and freedom. Imagine that existence is not a straight line that is suddenly cut short, but a vast endless ocean. Life would be a single wave that is born, gathers strength, rises to its peak, and eventually curves and breaks upon the shore. Death then would not be the disappearance of the water, but its graceful return to the sea, its reincorporation into the immensity from which it was never truly separate. The wave was always the ocean, and the ocean is every wave. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is the compass for navigating that transition, a lantern that illuminates the darkness not with an alien or frightening light, but with the gentle, unwavering clarity of our own essential nature, a light we often forget we possess. To truly understand the profound depth of this text, we must journey to its origin, to the heart of the ancient Himalayas, where Tibet's mountains pierce the sky like majestic thresholds between the earth and the heavens. It is said to have been revealed by the great master Padmasambhava in the 8th century, a figure beautifully shrouded in both myth and history, who is credited with planting the potent seeds of Tantric Buddhism in that region. Its wisdom was not immediately written down, but was transmitted orally for generations, whispered from teacher to disciple, guarded by sages and yogis who understood that this was not a rigid set of dogmas to be believed, but a living, breathing description of experiential truth, a map drawn from the direct experiences of consciousness itself. The key word here, the very anchor of this entire philosophy, is bardo. It is a word that is often mistranslated or simplified to merely mean death. But its true meaning is far richer and more applicable to our daily existence. It means intermediate state, a gap, a threshold, a transition between two states of being. And here is the first great key that unlocks the text's relevance. Our entire life is woven with these bardos. Birth is a bardo, a dramatic transition from one world to another. Sleep is a bardo, a nightly journey into another realm of consciousness. Deep meditation is a bardo, a conscious entry into a state between thought and pure awareness. A moment of crisis, a sudden loss, a peak of ecstasy, a simple pause between breaths. These are all micro-bardos, moments where the solid ground of our identity shifts. Physical death is simply the supreme bardo, the most dramatic and final transit. But it is not an isolated event. It is the culmination of a lifetime of smaller transitions. This vision completely transforms our perception of both life and death. The Bardo Thödol, therefore, is not just a book to be pulled out at the end. It is a continuous philosophy for navigating all the thresholds of life. Tradition dictated that this text be read aloud into the ear of the dying or the recently deceased. This practice was rooted in a profound understanding that consciousness, even after abandoning its physical vessel, remains acutely receptive and capable of hearing and understanding. The calm, steady voice of the reader became a spiritual beacon, a constant reminder and a familiar guide amidst the disorienting whirlwind of the post-death experiences. And the central message of that guide, repeated like a mantra throughout the verses, is as simple as it is revolutionary. Do not fear. Do not fear the magnificent or terrifying visions that will arise, because all of them, without exception, are projections of your own mind. They are the contents of your own consciousness made manifest. This is the philosophical core that distinguishes it from many other traditions. Unlike descriptions of external heavens and hells presided over by judging gods, the Bardo Thödol places us squarely at the center of our own creation. Heaven and hell are not geographical places one goes to, but internal states of consciousness that are experienced based on the habits and patterns cultivated during life. We are both the artist and the audience of our own afterlife experience. The text describes with astonishing accuracy 3 main stages in the journey of consciousness after death, yet these stages are not merely sequential events, but profound revelations about the nature of mind itself. The first stage is the very instant of transition, a pivotal moment of immense potential, when consciousness, like a drop of dew slipping from a leaf, detaches from the physical body. In that sublime and weightless space, the text tells us, the primordial clear light dawns, a radiance of absolute purity and clarity that is not an external light, but the very essence of reality, the fundamental ground of being. It is described as a golden opportunity for liberation, a chance to recognize this luminous emptiness as one's own true nature and to merge with it in a state of enlightened unity. Yet, with a painful honesty, the text reveals that most souls instinctively recoil and reject it. The reason given is not one of cosmic judgment, but a deeply human and familiar one: fear. It is the same fear we feel in life towards the vast unknown, towards anything that threatens the comfortable, familiar sense of a separate self. The mind, so accustomed to identifying with a name, a story, and a form, is overwhelmed by the sheer boundlessness of this light. It is as if a fish that has always known the confines of its pond were suddenly offered the terrifying immensity of the open ocean. Its first impulse is to retreat to the familiar, to the known boundaries, however limited they may be. This initial rejection is a powerful mirror, reflecting our own daily resistances to letting go of control, to abandoning our comfort zone, and to embracing a truth far greater than our individual selves. If consciousness, out of that deep-seated habit of fear, turns away from the liberating embrace of the clear light, it then enters the second bardo. This is a realm of intense and awe-inspiring visions that unfold like a grand cosmic panorama. For a period that may feel like days, the consciousness is met with a succession of breathtaking apparitions. First come the peaceful deities, radiant beings seated in lotus postures, emanating an aura of infinite compassion, serenity, and wisdom. Their presence is almost unbearably beautiful, offering a profound sense of peace. Yet this tranquil display is followed by the emergence of wrathful figures, deities with fierce expressions, surrounded by flames and wielding power, embodying a terrifying fury. The natural instinctive reaction would be to flee in sheer terror from these frightening forms and to cling desperately to the peaceful, comforting ones. But the guide, spoken gently into the ear of the departing consciousness, is unwavering and clear. Do not flee and do not cling. It insists that the seeker must recognize every single vision, whether blissful or terrifying, as nothing more than a manifestation of their own interior landscape. The luminous, peaceful deities are merely the reflection of one's own latent clarity, compassion, and innate Buddha nature. Conversely, the wrathful, terrifying figures are nothing other than the externalized personification of one's own deepest fears, unresolved attachments, repressed angers, and darkest passions. Without the physical body to act as a buffer or a filter, these mental projections are experienced with a raw, overwhelming intensity. This stage delivers one of the text's most crucial teachings, that to die is, quite literally, to come face to face with the sum total of oneself. Everything we have ever repressed, denied, secretly cultivated, or openly expressed in life now unfolds before us as an inescapable, vividly real psychic landscape, forcing a final and absolute accountability. Finally, if the consciousness fails to recognize the illusory, self-created nature of these visions and remains trapped in the dualistic play of attraction and aversion, it enters the third and final bardo, that of the search for rebirth. Here the panoramic visions fade, and the consciousness, now burdened by the momentum of its past actions, its karma, and driven by the residual energy of its deepest desires and attachments, finds itself wandering in a state of profound confusion and longing. It is a restless period, likened to being a traveler lost in a dense fog, desperately seeking shelter, a new form, a new body in which to incarnate. The text describes how the consciousness is not judged or sent anywhere by an external force, but is instead drawn toward different modes of existence through a process of magnetic resonance, like a note vibrating in harmony with a specific chord. Those souls who have consistently cultivated compassion, wisdom, and self-awareness throughout their lives naturally feel an affinity for and are attracted to rebirths in circumstances of greater freedom, clarity, and serenity. Conversely, those who lived immersed in ignorance, dominated by hatred, greed, or intense attachment, are magnetically pulled toward experiences that are denser, more confined, and more limited, realms that reflect the inner state they themselves have nourished. This is not a punishment inflicted by a god or a universe, but a natural and inevitable consequence, the ultimate expression of the law of cause and effect as applied to the stream of consciousness. Our current life, with every thought, choices, and action, is therefore nothing less than the continuous dress rehearsal for that final transit, shaping the momentum that will carry us forward into whatever comes next. The genius of the Bardo Thödol lies in the fact that this cartography of death is, at the same time, a manual for life. Because those bardos are not just post-mortem experiences, we live them at every instant. The clear light does not only shine at the moment of death, it flickers in our moments of absolute silence, in the pause between two thoughts, in the unexpected beauty that takes our breath away and makes us present for an instant. The visions of the second bardo are not foreign. They are the very mechanism of our overflowing emotions. The anger we feel that seems to take over us, the fear that paralyzes us, the anxiety that agitates us, are not external entities. They are projections of our mind, specters to which we give power and reality. And rebirth happens constantly. Every time we repeat a destructive habit, every time we lock ourselves into a pattern of thought, every time we refuse to change, we are being reborn into the same old story. And every time we let go, forgive, choose differently, open ourselves to the new, we are born again. Integrating the teachings of the Bardo Thödol into our daily life is, therefore, the most sacred training. It is not about becoming obsessed with death, but about imbuing life with a lucidity that frees us from fear. It is to practice the art of letting go of grudges that no longer serve us, letting go of the need for control, letting go of identification with our possessions and roles. Every small act of non-attachment is a rehearsal for the great final letting go. It is to recognize the dreamlike nature of our emotions. When anger arises, instead of being devoured by it, we can take a step back and observe. This is nothing more than a projection, a passing energy. That simple act of consciousness strips the specter of its power. It is to meditate, not as a mechanical exercise but as an active search for that inner clear light, quieting the mind to glimpse the clarity that is already there, waiting behind the noise. It is above all to embrace impermanence not as a threat, but as the most intimate law of existence. Everything changes, everything flows. The leaf that falls in autumn, the smile that fades, the day that turns into night. Fighting against this flow is the source of all suffering. Accepting it with serenity is to find a deep peace. Death is simply the most radical change, impermanence in its purest expression. Those who live prepared to die are not morbid beings. On the contrary, they are profoundly free people. Free to love intensely because they know nothing is permanent. Free to act with compassion because they understand the interconnection of all beings. Free to let go because they trust the flow of life. The final invitation of the Tibetan Book of the Dead is simple and powerful. Live consciously so that you may die consciously. Not to reach a distant paradise, but to awaken to the glorious reality of the here and now. The light that shines at the moment of death is the same light that shines in your eyes when you look with wonder, the same that beats in your heart when you love unconditionally. The only thing we take with us when crossing that final threshold is not our riches or our achievements, but the quality of our consciousness, the imprint of our love, the light we have been able to recognize within ourselves. Every day is a bardo, a transition. Every night a small death, every dawn a rebirth. Live with the fullness of one who knows this instant is unique and irreplaceable, and you will discover that death loses its shadow. It transforms then into the most luminous threshold, the silent reminder that learning to die is, ultimately, learning the most sublime art, the art of living.